bent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate you for tuning in for another wonderful night. Super Bowl 60. The Seattle Seahawks are Super Bowl champions. And don't ever get it confused. Quarterback is the most important position on the football field. You know that. I know that. It's one of the first things they tell you when you start watching football. Quarterback is extremely, extremely important. But when do the team with the better quarterbacks normally lose? It's when the other team is better players 2 through 53. They have the better roster. They have the better defense. It's usually a coaching advantage. And that's what Seattle did. Yes, if you went into this game and you said, based off the seasons they've had and the totality of the career of Sam Darnold, and you said, look, Drake May is the best quarterback on the field on Sunday, fine, you'd be absolutely right. But as somebody who watched a team have the best quarterback on the field and the best offense of all time and get smacked 43-8 in a Super Bowl, when the other team is better, they're just better. And here's the reality of the Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots. Seattle had a better running game. They had the best receivers. They had the best skill position players. Their offensive line, while not the strength of their team, was better than New England's. Defensive line was better than New England's. Linebackers are better than New England's, and their secondary, despite Christian Gonzalez playing an amazing game, it was also better than New England's. Quarterback is absolutely essential, and it is a mandatory position. You cannot be horrible at quarterback and win a Super Bowl. But just having the best quarterback is not the guaranteed success for getting all the way and winning. Seattle, you could even argue, as great as Mike Vrabel's a season as he's had and as great of a coach as we think he is. He's the coach of the year, and he deserves it. But is it impossible, or is it a stretch to say Mike Macdonald was obviously the best coach in that game, but he might be the best coach out of the two naturally? Again, Mike Macdonald went into the division with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, the two best play callers in the NFL, arguably. And in his second year, he gets Seattle to 10 wins in year one, and second year the win in the Super Bowl. Quarterback's important. We all know that. But these teams that have these all-time rosters that we think about, this Seattle Seahawks team, the Legion of Boom Seahawks team, which remember, they had Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson was in year two. He was not even the peak Seattle version of Russell Wilson yet. He was still just a kid playing in the NFL, seeing how he's going to perform in the playoffs. Year two, Denver had Peyton Manning, the all-time scoring offense, and Seattle blew their doors down. And while this score wasn't as demonstrative or as bad as Seattle and the Legion of Boom beating up the Broncos team, this game was really never in question. Seattle, from the first series, they looked faster. They were pushing New England around. Will Campbell, he's going to get memed and clowned on. He couldn't block anybody. Drake May couldn't get a rhythm. Seattle was the better team defensively, offensively, and that's with JSN had to miss time in that game. He went to the blue 10 inside the locker room. Like Seattle, and that was with Sam Darnold having a admittedly shaky first quarter, and you could argue a shaky first half. But even when it was 9-0, not all 9-0s feel the same. Sometimes 9-0 feels like, when 9-0 could feel like, hey, we're just one score from getting back in the game. When Seattle was up 9-0, it was like, is New England going to move the ball at all against this defense? Drake May had 60 yards through three quarters. And Drake is a great young quarterback. If you want to say he's the best quarterback from that class, we'll discuss that later. That's obviously an argument. He had an MVP level season. But Seattle, they don't get a lot of talk. There's not a lot of You know, they're not one of these, they're not a super major city that's always going to get discussed. They're not one of the iconic NFL franchises. We don't always get the best team winning the Super Bowl, but I think the reality this year is we did. If you watch during the regular season, Seattle, you would just see them on your TV when you get those little in-game updates. And they're up 28-0 at half on some teams. They're up 30-0 at half on some teams. Seattle, from start to finish this entire season, regular and postseason, in the best division in football, they took 2 out of 3 from the Niners. They took 2 out of 3 from the Rams. And then they were clearly the superior team Sunday against New England. So congratulations, Seattle Seahawks, the best team in the NFL in 2025, 2026. They are your Super Bowl champions. Now let's move on to New England. And this is the unfortunate part, because we have a big logjam in the AFC now. You had 3 teams this year who broke out of the mold of where they had been. And that's the Broncos, who were the 1 seed, New England, who was the 2 seed, and Jacksonville, who was the 3 seed. And this is why all these opportunities are so important. Because you have, Buffalo did make the playoffs this year, but next year, Mahomes, Allen and the Bills, and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, the 3 normal powerhouses the last 4 to 5 years of the AFC, they're going to be good. They're going to be good again too. Yes, I know they got 2 new head coaches and Mahomes is coming off an injury, but you got 3 teams that broke out this year. You've got your normal places or normal pieces of guys who are contenders, big time players, and you have a team like the Chargers, who we expect to be better because you expect them to be less injury riddled. You have a team, like the Bengals, who we're always going to say, because you have Joe Burrow, you have a chance to get back to the playoffs. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen in the AFC next year. And so the Patriots, to not take advantage of this opportunity after you want to say people are going to clown on them for all the easy schedule stuff, if you win that game, no one cares about your easy schedule. The 72 Dolphins had one of the 5 easiest schedules of all time. No one cares. They went undefeated. The 99 Rams, the greatest show on turf, they had the easiest schedule of all time before New England. Nobody cares. They won a Super Bowl. But you are never guaranteed to get back no matter how talented you are. Dan Marino makes it in 84, has one of the most historic passing seasons we've ever seen from an NFL quarterback, never makes it back to a Super Bowl. In fact, these are 2 of the things that are going around the internet right now. Listen to these 2 stats. Guys who have made the Super Bowl in year 2. Dan Marino never got back. Colin Kaepernick never got back. Brock Purdy has not gotten back. And now Joe Burrow has not gotten back. And now Drake May. Guys who have lost their first Super Bowl and then went on to win just 1 in their career. The list is 2 names long. It is John Elway and Jalen Hurts last year. And John Elway did it in some fantastic fashion. He got his head beat in 3 Super Bowls in a row and still came back and got 2 at the end of his career. Jim Kelly went to 4 straight. Couldn't win 1. Again, Dan Marino has a 48 passing touchdown in 1984. Think of how ridiculous that is. Never makes it back. There is no guarantee. There is no certainty. Even if you love Drake May, even if you love Mike Vrabel, even if you love the Patriots culture and what they've established, there is no guarantee you ever get back. Think about this. There's about 4 quarterbacks who distort Super Bowl ratings and Super Bowl statistics. Tom Brady, he got to 10. Montana went 4 for 4. Bradshaw went 4. And, Montana, Bradshaw, Brady, and Elway got to 5. And Mahomes, 5 quarterbacks. I apologize, because Mahomes has also gotten to 5. Think about that. That is 28 of the 60 Super Bowls. 5 guys. Most guys never get to 1, and a lot of guys only get to 1 and never get back. So as great of a season as this was for New England, I believe it was, because New England is going to have cap space, and besides Christian Gonzalez, they don't have a lot of big money guys they got to pay right this second. So enjoy the season as a whole. Second-year quarterback, your first-year head coach, making the Super Bowl. That is fantastic. But there also is the real risk, and the statistics say it is more likely than not this coach quarterback duo may never get back into the Super Bowl. Or maybe Drake May joins the elite all-time class of those guys, Elway, Mahomes, Brady. Maybe he's going to be one of those guys. But great season by New England, but it's really tough to get back, man. And we've seen the Super Bowl hangover. Kansas City, who's the reigning NFL dynasty, they lost last year, and this season went to hell. Losing in a Super Bowl, it's hard to recover from. Man, we got so much stuff to talk about. Fun game, great halftime show. So much football to talk this week before we start to make our big shift towards basketball. This is HardFoul Radio. Be back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. So I talked to this about this a little bit with the Sam Darnold story, and I learned yesterday during the game, and I think this is unfair to Seattle, but it's my honest thought. So I owe honesty if nothing else. So they unveiled this nickname, the dark side, for the defense. And I'm not exactly sure where it came from. I had never heard the nickname before, and maybe that's my own ignorance. And if it is, to the people of Seattle and their fans, I apologize. But this is the unfortunate thing this defense is going to have to deal with. I don't think the dark side's going to work as a nickname. Just my own personal opinion. Secondly, three things really matter to be an all-time defense. And they did the first. The first thing is you got to win the Super Bowl. Because as great as Houston was, as great as Denver was, as great as the other great defenses in the league were this year, Seattle's the only one that has a claim to be an all-timer because they won the Super Bowl. We do not remember great statistical defenses that don't win Super Bowls. Tony talks about this all the time with the 23 Ravens. That team led the NFL, I believe it was sacks, turnovers, and points per game, and they are not going to be remembered as a historically all-time great team because they didn't win a Super Bowl. They lost against Mahomes, and they're going to be forgotten to history, unfortunately. The second thing I think you need to do to be an all-time defense is you have to – who you play matters. Now, listen. Who you play is the wrong. I'm sorry. How you play, because who you play is a little more subjective. How you play in that game. They did, in reality is, now I'm even trying to I'm double checking myself here. Seattle did that part. 6+ sacks. They gave up 14 points. They gave up to go under 15 points and 6+ sacks. They're one of 6 teams ever. The last one to do it was the Broncos in 2015 against Cam Newton. And that was the how you play, or the who you play. I'm sorry. Cam is a big part of that because I think Denver got extra credit because Cam was the MVP that year and he was projected to win that game and put up all these points, and no one was sure if the Broncos were going to be able to stop him. But the more I think about it, even in hindsight and in real time, the Ravens in 2000 beat Kerry Collins. The Buccaneers did beat Rich Gannon, which was a bigger deal back then, but doesn't age as well historically. The Legion of Boom did beat Peyton Manning. And so you've got these examples, but the Ravens kind of throw it out, and we consider the Ravens an all-time defense. And the 85 Bears beating up the Patriots, I don't think anyone's considering an all-time. So you got those two. But the third thing, and the biggest that I think Seattle's honestly lacking to be in some of these big conversations, and then I'll get to the second part of this, they don't have, with all due respect to everybody on this defense, they don't have Von Miller. They don't have Richard Sherman. They don't have Ray Lewis. And they don't have pick your buck, John Lynch, Derek Brooks, Rondé Barber. Like, they don't have a guy that we look at and go, oh, yeah, clear all-time player, Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it. They're more like a bunch of guys who, yeah, they're all really, really good, but they don't have that player. And when you don't have that player, sometimes it's hard. It's just harder to identify. Again, we identify Von Miller with that 2015 Broncos team. We identify Ray Lewis with the 2000 Ravens. We identify those handful of Buccaneers with that team. Richard Sherman with the Legion of Boom. Even if you want to go Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas. And the Seahawks just realistically don't have that player. As great as Devin Witherspoon was yesterday, as great of a season he's had, when you start talking about the best corners in the game, we don't even throw him in that conversation. Now, maybe we should, but like we don't put him in the conversation with PS2 or Stingley or even Gonzalez, who was on the other sideline. So I think those things hurt Seattle from being a true all-time defense. The other thing, and this is unique to them, I also think they're just a little too close to the Legion of Boom. I think the fact that the Legion of Boom is not even 10 years old yet, or just at 10 years old, and we still have them in our mind, and Richard Sherman's in the media, like, I think it's tough to say, like this thing, like Denver all season, people were trying to think of a nickname, and it was tough not to be like, Denver had historically great Orange Crush. They had the no-fly zone, and it's like, oh, well, what do we call these guys? And you're always kind of comparing them to the last great defense of that team. And the Orange Crush is 30 plus years old now. No-fly zone's new, obviously, is newer. They're in that same time frame as the Legion of Boom. And that unfortunately takes away from what this Broncos defense is able to accomplish, and it takes away from Seattle, because as great as they were, and the dark side, I know, it's a great nickname, it's going to be tough to get out of the Legion of Boom shadow. So Seattle's defense is amazing, but I think the lack of a true all-time Hall of Fame level player to identify with, it's going to make it tough on them. Moving on to my favorite part of the show. Why would he say that? I'm using for this Stephen A. Smith as my muse because he went on again today and reiterated this, but this has been a lot of conversation, and I think revisionist history is one of the worst things we do, and it's completely unfair. Because we all have to make decisions in real time. We all have to make choices as they come up. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. All you can do is accept your choice, live in your choice, and go, hey, this is what I'm going to do moving forward. It's really easy right now to say, obviously, the Minnesota Vikings messed up getting rid of Sam Darnold. Of course they did. Sam Darnold just has had 2 14-win seasons, 4,000 plus yards back-to-back, and now has a Super Bowl trophy. And J.J. McCarthy, despite playing better at the end of the regular season, he is the universal meme for when your quarterback plays like ass on the internet. So, of course, right now, it is objectively letting Sam Darnold walk out of the building was clearly the wrong decision. Except Stephen A., and this is why you're the face of this, as soon as you said this, everybody, it's real easy to pull up what you said in real time, which is you've got to let Sam Darnold walk because you can't commit that kind of money to him, and you got J.J. McCarthy, who you drafted in the first round. You have to see what you have. And that was, maybe it's going to turn out to be wrong. Maybe it's going to turn out to be the wrong move, not paying Sam Darnold, letting J.J. McCarthy play, but the logic was fine. Because if J.J. McCarthy, even if he didn't get to a Super Bowl, let's say J.J. McCarthy looked like rookie year Jaden Daniels or this year Drake May, but the Vikings didn't make the playoffs, but you saw the potential of your franchise quarterback who you would have at a low salary for at least 3 more years while he's on his rookie contract, and you know you would have him for a much longer period, even though Sam's actually not as old as people think, you would have him for an even longer run than having Sam Darnold. Everybody would go win-win. It would be a universal win-win. The Vikings got their franchise quarterback. Sam got to go to Seattle, win a Super Bowl, revitalize his career, have this amazing storyline. But because JJ played so bad as a second-year player, really a rookie because he didn't play as a rookie, and Sam just won the Super Bowl, this is the apex of how bad does this look? And Minnesota just fired their GM. And if you look for 2 seconds, the propaganda, and I'm not saying Minnesota's GM is Brett Veach or my guy George Payton in Denver, who's been making really good moves the last couple years, or to even say he's Howie Roseman in Philadelphia. I'm not saying he's that. But the second he was fired, all the stories and damage control came out. Well, actually, Kevin O'Connell wanted to keep Sam Darnold. Well, actually, a lot of players and it was really, really nasty propaganda once they fired their former GM. So right now is just the apex of how bad does that look. But in real time, when we have to make these decisions, I'm pretty sure I even said, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure in real time I said, yeah, you go with J.J. McCarthy. Because I wouldn't have wanted to invest that amount of money in Sam Darnold, even though Seattle got him on a good contract, all things considered. But the same logic for why Seattle moved off Geno Smith, when it's like, wait, why would you? Because they remember Seattle got killed. They're like, let's not be revisionist. Seattle got killed for moving off Geno, who people said is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold, and bringing in Sam. And now Geno led the Raiders. He did so well. They got the number 1 pick, and they're going to draft his replacement. So, again, in real time, when you have the way you have to operate in life, real time, J.J. McCarthy, while he did not play well enough, I still kind of think that was the right decision, and most people would make that decision. You took him with a top 12 pick. You did not want to commit to Sam Darnold. You felt with Kevin O'Connell and the roster you built that it was almost not quarterback proof, but you could get away with less talent or less production right now from your quarterback position. You trusted your OC, you trusted your roster, you trusted this thought process, and it just didn't work out, and it just looks really, really bad at this exact moment. But who's to say, and I'm not predicting this, but let's say Sam has another big turnover year next year and a couple things don't bounce Seattle's way. Remember, Seattle was a 10-win team that didn't make the playoffs last year, meaning there was a handful of things that did not go their way, despite the fact they got 10 wins. Denver in the AFC last year made it with 10 wins. And let's say there's some regression from Seattle. And let's say J.J. McCarthy has a great year next year. He's just in year 2, Kevin O'Connell system, and he just has an amazing year. Get you 30-plus touchdowns, under 10 turnovers. Looks great. Minnesota makes the playoffs. What are we going to then be saying what was the right decision? Going with the young guy who you already invested the first-round pick in? Or are we just going to play by the moment, by the minute? Oh, you're winning the race now. But I'm like, in real time, this was not a bad decision. So Stephen A. Smith and everybody else that has this opinion right now, why are you saying that? Come on, man. I want to address the Chargers, but I'm going to wait until after the break. Here's the other thing with New England, guys. I also don't, the same way revisionist history, same way we just talked about revisionist history, I want to talk about in-the-moment slander. And Will Campbell is going to get a lot of it. Will Campbell did not have a good postseason in any way, shape, and or form. Neither did Drake May. But we're going to focus on Will Campbell here. I defended Will Campbell last year in the draft. Tony and I both did. We thought the short arm stuff was overblown. He had played in the SEC. He was a great left tackle. Like, he didn't have, quote unquote, the measurables, but he had on-field performance, which we're always going to rate a little bit higher. Like, he's actually was in the game playing the position at a high level. He then comes back from an injury. And the reality is, the same way Drake May defenders are going to say, oh, his shoulder was actually more messed up than we gave it credit for, and that's why he was off throw. Like, even the Broncos game, you could kind of tell, like, he was off. He was one of the most accurate passers in NFL history all throughout the regular season, and then he comes back in the Bronco game and in the Super Bowl, and he's just clearly not the same guy. He was taking a bunch of sacks, and you saw the impact of that shoulder. Will Campbell also came back from an injury. Will Campbell coming back from an injury clearly, objectively, was just not ready to come back. But just because, and I get it, everybody's hurt at this time of the year, and if you're on the field, you got to perform, and all that's fine. And all this tough guy talk from football players, and that's great, and that's all is what it is, right? But the conversation, and the pendulum always goes a little too far of, oh, Will Campbell has to move into guard. The Patriots got to draft another offensive lineman. He can't play. He's getting run over. He was clearly two different players pre and post injury. So let's see what he looks like when he comes back next year. Again, the Patriots were the first team in Super Bowl history to start a rookie left tackle and a rookie left guard. Did it get exposed? Yeah. Well, guess what? They're rookies. Take an NBA team and have them go rookie point guard, rookie 2, or rookie point guard, rookie center. They would also probably get exposed in the NBA Finals. I know we're going to clown on them, and everyone's using the Amazon clip from before the season started. But give Will Campbell a little bit of grace, man. He's a rookie. He came back fighting from an injury. And did he play well? Absolutely not. I'm not defending it. But in that same regard, I'm not going to go over the top and say, oh, he's clearly never going to be able to be a left tackle in the NFL. He's got to move into guard. He's this, he's that. We're not doing all that. There's a reason why he was the top 5 pick. There's a reason why he was their starting left tackle day one. Again, did he play well in the playoffs? No, but neither did Drake May. But you're all going to sit there and defend Drake May and say it was the shoulder. Will Campbell came back from an injury. I think it's as simple as that. And if you're New England, you go into next season, you got some cap space, you've only got to re-sign Christian Gonzalez. You get Will Campbell, you get him back all the way healthy, you invest in a couple more defensive guys, maybe another skill position player, depending on how you feel about Stephon Diggs and how long he's going to be able to play and produce at that level for you. He was great this year for him. I just don't think Will Campbell is as bad as everybody is currently making him out to be. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. So two things. Sorry, we are back. Apologize about that. Two things we got to discuss here really quick before we get to the top of the hour. Hard right, hard left. It is a Monday, and Tony is joining us tonight. So the first being the Patriots' strength of schedule. And yes, they're going to play a tougher strength of schedule next year. Congratulations. This is what now being a good NFL team means. You play a tougher schedule. Woo. I don't believe it is the end all be all that people make it out to be, because the reality is teams that play tough schedules based on predictions are just, for the most part, good NFL teams. Every now and again you get some weird combinations because maybe your division is really tough, and that sometimes amplifies. Like, you're in the NFC West, the Cardinals are probably gonna have one of the hardest strength of schedules next year without even looking at it, because they got the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers all in their division. So, they're a fourth place team. They probably will have the toughest fourth place strength of schedule in the entire NFL. Just going through some teams this year that had tough strength of schedules. The New York Giants had the toughest heading into this year. New York Giants weren't very good. And if, let's be honest, even if they had a lesser strength of schedule, probably still would not have been very good. They had a couple nice early season wins, the Chargers, the Eagles, but the Giants probably finished where they were going to finish anyway. The Lions, while yes, a down year, still finished above 500. They had the second strongest strength of schedule. The Chicago Bears had the third strongest strength of schedule, and they probably had their best season in, a decade? And they have their franchise quarterback and head coach who they feel amazing about for the next 10 to 15 years. Do you think do you think Bears fans are going to be like, man, we have the third toughest strength of schedule, there's no way we can win? The Eagles had the fourth strength of schedule. Obviously, while it unraveled in the playoffs, still won their division comfortably. The reality is, if you are a good NFL team, you're going to play other good NFL teams, and your schedule is going to be tougher. And the reality also of it is, and I said this heading into the game, some of the Patriots turning into the easiest schedule of all time, or one of the two easiest schedules of all time, is because the Patriots were good. They were the team that was previously bad that got good and beat up other bad teams. Plus, what's not going to change for them is in their division, the Jets and Dolphins are probably not going to be very good next year either, and that's going to drag down. But the more games you win, just this, I know, follow me here, this is really tough math. The more games I win, the more games people on my schedule lose. Meaning my schedule gets easier by default because I'm beating up on other teams. The 72 Dolphins have one of the easiest schedules of all time. It is never discussed. The 99 Rams, the greatest show on turf, one of the easiest schedules ever. Not discussed because they won a Super Bowl. 7 of the last 10 Super Bowl champions. Top 10 easiest schedule. None of it's discussed because if you win at the end, no one's going to care. So yes, are the Patriots going to play tougher games? 1,000%. Does that mean that? But now, the Patriots, who were considered an easier game on this year's schedule, are now considered a tough game on next year's schedule. So anybody who had New England this year heading into the season, wow, our strength of schedule went down. New England's not that good. Now this year, New England has to be considered one of the AFC powers. When you talk about the Chiefs, we'll see what they do post Mahomes when he comes back. When you talk about the Ravens, the Bills, this year, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Jaguars, these are all now teams that you have to consider at the top end of the AFC. So don't give me the schedule crap. And we can't have, I believe this wholeheartedly, and then we're going to go on to the Chargers. Certain opinion, you shouldn't be allowed to say two contradicting things. A lot of people, and it's going to happen again this year, and watch it happen with the Giants. The Giants would be a really good example. I haven't seen their schedule yet, but I bet you this is going to be a conversation. The Giants get John Harbaugh. This is going to be a case for the Giants to be good this year. John Harbaugh, year 2 Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo off injury, Malik Neighbors off injury, Abdul Carter, that defensive line, and a 4th place schedule. An easy schedule. I think Washington actually has a 4th place schedule. But That's going to be logic used the same way it was used for the 49ers this year. Heading into the year, Brock Purdy's back healthy, Kyle Shanahan, you're going to get your guys back, and you got at the time, the second easiest schedule in the NFL. So if we're going to use that to pump these teams up and go, I think they're going to be good because they're going to play an easier schedule, let's remember that then we want to kill them and break them down and tear them down because now we want to use the easy schedule against them. This is going to happen. I already guarantee you. The Giants just pop into my head. I guarantee that's going to be common logic. And I think the Giants will be better next year. But you're going to go Harbaugh, everybody getting back, get back healthy, year 2 of your quarterback, and an easy schedule. And if the Giants make one of those amazing runs where they get deep into the NFC playoffs, are we going to say the same thing that we said about the Patriots this year? Should you be allowed to? Moving on to the most ludicrous thing I saw today. For the first time in 9 years, the Kansas City Chiefs are not the favorite to win the AFC West as predicted by multiple betting outlets. Multiple sports books. Chiefs are not the favorite. And of course, that must mean that the team that was just the 1 seed, with its now third-year quarterback coming off an injury, a top 5 defense, one of the best play callers in the sport, retained its upgraded its QB coach to its offensive coordinator, retained its defensive coordinator, is going to have pretty much everybody back and has flexibility now in cap space because they're no longer paying Russell Wilson. They must be the team that's obviously favored to win the AFC West. They just won it. No, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are favored to win the AFC West. It's the first time in 9 years. It is not the Kansas City Chiefs. I objectively think this is ridiculous. The Broncos just had a 14-win season, are bringing back a top 5 defense, an upgrade at offensive coordinator, bringing back their defensive coordinator. Both guys who got head coach interviews, by the way. So you essentially have 3 guys that the league considers head coach quality. You got Sean, you got Vance Joseph, you got Davis Webb, Bo Nix. They're gonna have cap space because they already have some cap space, and the cap is gonna go up. And the Russell Wilson contract they're no longer paying for. Like, what am I missing here? What am I missing here? The Broncos played a playoff game before Bo Nix got hurt. They beat, I don't know, Josh Allen, the guy who everybody said was going to be, it's his year. It's his time. Like, they beat the guy that everybody said was supposed to win because there was no Mahomes, no Allen, no Burrow, all that. He went into Mile High and he got whooped. Forced 5 turnovers. Bo played a great game. Like, what are we talking about here? The Chargers, what did they do in the playoffs? Oh, that's right. Justin Herbert is now 0 for 3 in playoff games. Well, that's not fair. It's maybe the most fair criticism of player performance ever. His first playoff game, he blew an all-time lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. His second playoff game, he threw 4 interceptions. And his third playoff game, he got you 3 points. He has lost in spectacular fashion in all 3 playoff games. Why are the Chargers favored? Oh, because they get their tackles back healthy. Okay. Oh, they have a lot of cap space. Okay. Is Joe Alt, I'm asking Charger fans, is Joe Alt the most valuable player in the history of football? Because Slater went down, and yes, that sucks. Injuries absolutely suck. They're devastating. They can just take the sail out of a season. But the Chargers fans felt like even after Slater went down, Slater didn't play a game this year. Week 1 against the Chiefs, you beat Kansas City in that game in Brazil. And you feel great about everything. And then Joe Alt steps in a left tackle. By the way, Nick Benito beat up Joe Alt when they played in week 3. And then Joe Alt goes down, and it's like, oh, well, now he's just screwed. Like, what are we going to do? He doesn't have Joe Alt. And it felt like there was a lot of convo around Joe Alt. Are Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater absolutely massive pieces, and should the Chargers be better because they have both their starting tackles? 1,000%. 1,000%. Do I also think the Chargers should carry some of the, well, stuff always happens, so should we call it a surprise? And maybe that sounds harsh or unfair, but like the 49ers, it feels like every single year the 49ers have injuries. So much so that they are looking into the power plant thing. Like John Lynch is actively discussing it at end of season press conferences. So shouldn't we just kind of go into like, maybe the Niners just have a bunch of injury prone players on their team, and that should just be accounted for. It's unfortunate, but it should just be accounted for. Like the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Yes, Joe Burrow is an amazing football player. He also has an injury history that has to be accounted for. The Broncos just won 14 games. Would probably be in the Super Bowl if their quarterback did not break his ankle. And do I think Seattle was the best team all year long and probably would have beat Denver? Yeah, I think at my core I do. But I think Denver was a better team than the Patriots. Drake May's better than the Bo Nix. I'm not here to argue about you with that. That's not, I don't care enough. But where Denver is currently as a roster, like what do the Chargers have that is better than Denver right now? At quarterback, okay, I'll give you that. Running back, let's see what happens in free agency. Because J.K. Dobbins was the best running back, but he might not go back to Denver. So we'll see. We'll call that a toss-up. If they don't re-sign J.K. Dobbins, I would say the Chargers have a chance to have the better running back position. Offensive line, Denver is better. And that's with Slater and all being there at tackle. Defensive line, Denver is better, even if they lose John Franklin Myers. At linebacker, Denver is better. Now, there is, again, we'll wait till free agency because there's a chance, because there is some weird talk about Dre Greenlaw being a one and done, which I don't agree with, but we'll see what happens at linebacker. But if they get Greenlaw and Singleton back, they have a better linebacking core. And secondary, Pat Surtain, I believe they're going to trade Riley Moss this offseason. But PS2, Brandon Jones, Hufanga, they have 2 All-Pros in their secondary. Denver's just better everywhere except quarterback. And we just saw it in the Super Bowl when we started off today's shows talking. Yes, you're better at quarterback, Chargers, but are you better anywhere else? They should not be the betting favorite to win the AFC West. That's just objectively ridiculous. This is HardFoul Radio, back to start hour 2. Man, we got our audio issues again. Sorry about that. Hour 2 of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. We got a slightly different setup, but making it work. Shout out to my friend for helping me out. So it is Monday, and that means it is time for Hard Right, Hard Left. We have a lot of opinions, a lot of things to talk about, things that we were right, things that we were wrong about. And let's start with Hard Left. We'll get the negative out of the way first. I don't know if this is accurate if you are a hardcore fan of sports. I think it's hard for a Super Bowl to be boring. I do think, though, the Super Bowl transcends hardcore sports lover because it's the biggest viewed TV show in America the entire year. So it's tough. That being said, I said this was not a boring Super Bowl. The game probably played out a little boring for most NFL fans and for most fans of just people there to watch the Bad Bunny concert that had football on both sides of it. Look, 9-0 at halftime isn't great. No other way to put it around it. It's not great. I've actually got a funny story to go with this. So my wife, she'll watch the Super Bowls with me, and some of them, like we watched Bengals Rams. That was an exciting Super Bowl. I could see on her face, like actively getting excited, like Odell Beckham having the big first quarter, the Bengals clawing back, fighting back, got a couple touchdowns in there. Like it was a decent back and forth game. There was some offense. Like it was a fun football game to watch. The very first first Super Bowl she ever watched with me, we had just moved in together. Everybody's second year living in, I'm sorry, was Rams Patriots. Classic. Not a great game. Was it Bill Belichick versus Sean McVay? And for the football nerds, is that going to go down as one of those, damn, what an all-time matchup? We had the young offensive genius versus the greatest coach of all time, the greatest defensive mind we've ever seen. Wow, what a story. Then, not a great game. I don't remember what the score was, but I remember it was really low scoring. We had actually had some friends over for that game, and there was a lot of side chatter by the third and fourth quarter, because everybody was like, this game's not very exciting. There's not a lot of touchdowns, not a lot of action. Like, what are we doing? So it was not exactly the world's most fun Super Bowl. And I defended the Super Bowl all last week. I said, you have a second-year quarterback potentially winning a Super Bowl. You have second-year head coach winning a Super Bowl. Those are great storylines. You got the offensive player of the year in JSN. You have Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels in his 10th Super Bowl. Like, look at all these headlines. Look at the excitement that you could have. 9-0's not great. And then the Patriots basically had no offense until garbage time in the fourth quarter. Yes, Drake May set the record for most passing yards in a quarter, but it was all essentially meaningless. I even tried to text the group chat I have with Tony and Will, and I was like, maybe there's some life. And they were like, not really. Kenneth Walker had a really good game. The Seattle defense obviously was amazing. New England wasn't a whole lot going on. There was fumbles, no offense. It was a bunch of 3-and-outs. It was not a very exciting football game. So much so, and this is maybe overstepping the bounds, wasn't it kind of a lackluster celebration? Like, think about it. When you watch, like, we've seen guys have these dramatic, and they're like they're seared into our brain. These dramatic, big time, come from behind games. These big, super huge, emotional Super Bowl championship wins. And guys are just going crazy. Guys are having these like over emotional tears running down the face, ugly, crying, all these just, you can feel the emotion through your television. And I didn't feel that with Seattle winning. Seattle winning, this one just kind of felt like we knew we were better. We felt like we should have won. And maybe the real Super Bowl was the NFC Championship game against the Rams. Like, that's just how it felt. I don't know. And I don't want to overstep boundaries or say like, oh, they weren't inspired, they weren't excited, they weren't happy. But even the player interviews, there was a lot of, I'm doing the interview because it's my job, I have to. but there's a lot of very formal answers, not a ton of emotion. Mike McDonald just smiled and kind of went on about his day. Like it felt like a good win. It didn't feel like the Super Bowl. It was tough. I defended it all week. Said this is exciting. It's going to be a great game. All this 9-0. The guys just look like at the end of the game. Some smiles, but not this over the top celebration or like I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping, but that's I can only say how I feel, and that's how the end of that game felt. Like Seattle, like, hey man, good job. You guys gotta win. You won the game. Cool. And like they're just going on to there's no. Again, I've seen Michael Strahan just over the moon. I've seen Brady crying. Hell, Belichick has showed emotion at some of the end of these games. And this game just felt like, we won. Good job. It was weird to me. My hard right from last week and kind of all season, and this is gonna sound unfair to Patriots fans, but the reality is, and this is good for your long-term future, but not so great for your right now, and that is, this isn't a Super Bowl team. This team had an MVP level quarterback, and I really could have made the hard right. Stafford deserves MVP, but we'll focus on New England. You had a great coached season. Mike Vrabel did all the right things, whether it was the culture in the building, game time management, game time decisions. Like Mike Vrabel hit all the right buttons. Like he had a fantastic coaching year, deserved his Coach of the Year award, was great, phenomenal, whatever words you want to use to describe him. But this roster was not better than Jacksonville's roster. It was not better than Denver's roster. And it's probably toe-to-toe with the Bills. That's probably its most comparable roster. I think even the Bills have a couple more players. This was a good team. They were not a Super Bowl team. Did they have amazing performances that helped them out? Yeah, of course they did. But are they one of the best defenses in the NFL? No. Do they have some of the best skill players in the NFL? No. If you took them versus the other conference championship teams, if you put their roster next to Denver, Seattle, LA, are they coming up fourth in that roster battle of who's got the best roster? Yeah. Like, you got cap space. You have cap space, and you have Mike Vrabel and Drake May, and that is an amazing start, and Patriots fans should love that. But this would have been one of those steal 'em Super Bowls. Like, if you had gone all the way in a year where your playoff lineup, again, we've all talked about this, you get the easy schedule, and then you get which I'm not really using against them, but this is just the facts. Then you get Justin Herbert, who has yet to play a good playoff game. You get C.J. Stroud, who just imploded. I don't think that was a great defensive game for the Patriots. I think C.J. Stroud just could not do anything that day. And then you get Jared Stidham, who's obviously the Broncos' backup quarterback. And then you run into Seattle, and it's like, okay, this is a big boy team. This is a defensive line that can dominate. This is an offense that can run the ball. Sam can throw it, JSN. And you just looked like you were 10-7 with Denver playing a backup. You were close with Houston even while C.J. Stroud was imploding, and you didn't really break away from the Chargers despite the lack of Justin Herbert's success until the fourth quarter. This was a really good Patriots team. Super Bowl team, not so sure. It's just the reality of it. Now, will you have the potential? Now, what you should love, this will be a team that has to be feared in the next coming of years because, again, you're going to have the cap space and you've got the quarterback and head coach. So you're going to be able, this is going to be next year's team, and the year after that should be even better than this year's. And that's something to be excited about. Hard right, hard left. It is that time of the week, and we are back. My brother Tony is joining us, standing in 6'6", 225 pounds. How we feeling today?
I'm good, man. Ready to yap a little bit about sports and whatnot.
Amen. So, Super Bowl result. We talked a little bit about it on group chat, obviously last week. In your opinion, for how the game looked versus your expectation, just on how the game looked, did it turn out like you thought it would?
Um, did it turn out how I thought it would? I can't necessarily say that. I thought the Seahawks would win. I'm not surprised that they won in a dominant fashion, but I did think it'd look a little bit different. I thought maybe the offense would be clicking a little bit smoother. Kenneth Walker had a great game, obviously, but the passing game wasn't up to what it was in prior weeks. When you think about, especially when you think about the Rams game, and then on the New England side, them getting bullied like that in the trenches is not necessarily surprising, but I thought they'd be able to counter some things to get their guys going a little bit, maybe get the ball in Booty's hands a little bit more. Maybe try to establish a run game as best as you could, even if that involved like using Drake on some stuff there, but they never did. And like I said, like I texted you guys yesterday, I think this is a top 10 defense of all time to me, and they showed it for sure. Finishing off with the title and with a dominant performance in the title game. It's yeah.
The defense I think is a little trickier. Now, there was three defenses to me that could have made a claim if they had gone all the way. Obviously, Houston's defense would have had a claim if they had gone all the way and won the Super Bowl. I thought Denver's defense would have had a claim, and then obviously Seattle's. I think my only thing that really hurt Seattle, I said this a little bit last week, where yes, they're probably a little too close to the Legion of Boom, and I don't think they're that good, which I think hurts them a little bit. I also think who you beat in the Super Bowl does matter to a degree. It's like the Legion of Boom beating, like just dog walking the Broncos, who had the highest scoring offense ever. Like that's a stat for them. And so I think when you do it to Drake May, who has had obviously an MVP level year, but not a great postseason, I think that also kind of goes against him. But Seattle's defense is amazing, and they dominated that game. Speaking of Drake, we say all the time, you are never guaranteed to get back. And historically, if you take out Brady, Mahomes, Montana, and Bradshaw, it's even tougher to ever get back because those guys have what is that 18 Super Bowls between the four of them, right? If you're a Patriots fan today, what is the solace you take from this season, knowing that it's not a guarantee you might be in this position again, even though you've got who we consider a great head coach and a great young quarterback?
I it's I don't subscribe to the "will be back." I never do. I never have. I don't subscribe to the idea of, "oh, we'll be back." Like, that may have been their only chance and they failed, and like, you got to live with that. Now you work as hard as you can to get back, but the reality of the matter is, like, we've seen it over the last few years. Two of the four teams that represented conferences and championship games, you think about the Ravens, you think about the Lions 2 seasons ago. Like, it's not as if that was years and years ago. That was 2 seasons ago, and since then they've both gone. They went conference title game, lost close. They went uh divisional round, and then they've gone missed playoffs. Like, you can never think that you'll be back. You can never operate under the guise of "we'll be back." So when you get that chance, when you are there, you have to do everything you can to take advantage of that moment. And did New England do that yesterday? I don't know. I don't know the game plan. I don't know what things were, so I can't say that they did or didn't. But that may have been their only chance under this regime of Rabel and Drake May.
There's a stat going around right now, and it's tough because obviously all of these guys, two of them, one of them is a definitive Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. The others have all made great impacts. Quarterbacks that have lost a Super Bowl in their second year. It's Marino, it's Burrow, it's Purdy, and it's now Drake. And so obviously it's like, but none of them ever gotten back, which is why I'm sorry, those four are grouped together because they never made it back. Obviously, I mean, in real time, there's maybe no better, oh yeah, we'll for sure be back than Marino. Like in 84, Marino broke essentially every record by a mile. Like he revolutionized passing back then. Um, you did say I'm curious as far as I know the game plan, but you did, if I can divulge, you did call both game plans yesterday from the two teams pussy play calling and that you hated it. I wanted to give you the minute to expand on that.
That comes down to the sequence there. I want to say it was second quarter. I could be wrong, but I want to say it was the second quarter where um the it was just very like pedestrian and very game managing play call, and it's just like on the side of the Seahawks. If you legit don't think they could score points on you, I can understand the idea of playing a little bit more conservatively. But that's just a tricky game to play in the era where the quarterbacks are just more athletic and more dynamic than they've ever been. And an era where the game is more unpredictable than it's ever been. We've seen it throughout these playoffs and throughout this season. So I don't like not going for touchdowns. I don't like not going for big explosive plays, especially when you have the advantage as the Seahawks had during that stretch of the game when it was close and both offenses was flat. And on the side of the Patriots, your only chance to essentially win that game was taking shot plays. Now, due to the Seahawks defense, they just didn't have the chance to get many of those off. Not even to say they didn't call them, they didn't dial them up, and they didn't want to attempt them. They just, they just found themselves in a spot where it was kind of locked down and didn't get the chance to do so. So I can understand that. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of just pedestrian play calling and let's just get to the next down, not next down, but let's just get a field goal play calling. Like that doesn't move me.
That's fair. Do you think does this take for kind of our last Super Bowl question? I guess we'll take both sides because you are a fan of both quarterbacks in the game. Does this playoff run, and I don't really hold it too much against Drake May, but are you going to look at it differently considering that he really didn't play great in any singular game, and now because they lost Super Bowl in the fashion they did, there's a lot more credence to it. It's like, oh well, they only got here because they played a backup quarterback, or because CJ imploded, or because Herbert looks like it just doesn't work for him in the postseason. And with Sam, your viewpoint on his entire story going from obviously top five pick, didn't work with the Jets, bounced around the league, and now he's a Super Bowl champion. Shout out to the meme, and I don't know why we threw shots at Josh Rosen. I have no idea. Like, y'all had three other quarterbacks you could have kept in there. Josh Rosen is doing somebody's taxes, and y'all just threw shots at him from like a distance. That was crazy. But your opinion on both quarterbacks after this game and the seasons they've had?
Um, Great seasons by both. Like shit, Drake May, run up to MVP. A lot of people probably thought he should have won. Um, Look at what Sam did this year. You know, only quarterback not named Tom Brady to have back-to-back 14 win seasons. Like that means a lot. That's a big deal. He should be very proud of that. So yeah, I think they both had great seasons. It just ended better for Sam than it did Drake, but you know, Drake has a lot to build on. The Patriots obviously have to improve what's in front of him when you think about the offensive line, and they'll grow. Starting two rookies on the offensive line against what I just said is a top 10 defense of all time. That's a tough matchup for anybody. But they'll get better. Um, Obviously, got to improve his weapons as well. You kind of saw the deficiencies in the receiving core last night when nobody could get open. So that they'll have to improve there. And then when you look at Sam, for as many teams as he's been on, and for as long as it's felt like he's been in the league, he's got another 10 in him. What does the
Yeah.
next 10 look like compared to the first 10? So, um, very excited for him to Sam Darnold was a fucking Super Bowl winning quarterback. Like Sam Darnold won the Super Bowl, and it's it's just something that we don't really get to see. Like first quarterback to win the Super Bowl after playing for five teams. Like going from the next face of New York and the savior of Jets football to a backup in Carolina, um, a backup in San Francisco, and kind of just being away from the spotlight completely to getting the Minnesota job and getting his career back in order and putting them on a path to maybe compete for a title, and then getting here to Seattle this year and exceeding all expectation and leading them to a Super Bowl. So you're very, very happy for him and very excited to see how he can parlay this into just even more success in this back part of his. I don't even want to say back part of his career, really. Cause shit, if this is Lamar and Josh's prime years, how can it not be Sam's? So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what this next chapter for him looks like.
Now the story's dope. I talked last week a little bit about it's tough to like replicate this kind of story because the unfortunate part or reality of like Sam's the only one that's made it. Like out of like there's no like Adam Gase just got a job again. And like there's no coach that's been here the whole time with Sam Darnold that's still in the league actively getting paid. Like Sam to be able to get the X amount of chances, it's a really hard thing to say, oh, this is repeatable or a blueprint for other guys because most guys aren't going to get 8 years. Like you can't tell
Hmm.
an owner and a GM like, hey, look, man, for 5 years it's going to be rough, but year 6 we taking off. Like no, you're getting fired before that point. Looking ahead to the future a little bit, so Denver, New England, and Jacksonville were the new teams this year for teams that had not been in the playoff ring or and had not been one of the premier teams the last couple of years. Those are the top 3 seeds. And if you compare them to who's been the dominant 3 teams, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, if you were to put money on it, what do you think is more likely to happen next year? That the new 3 teams continue to keep improving, getting better, and solidify themselves, or do you think we get back to Mahomes, Lamar, Josh continuing to dominate the AFC?
Um, Eventually you'll get back to that. I don't know if it's next season, just due to Mahomes' injury and the turnover with Buffalo. I don't want to say turnover because obviously Joe Brady's taking over, but they haven't had a great off season from a PR standpoint thus far. So kind of want to see what the vibes are like next year there. And then the Ravens got a new coach, and they have a lot of things to fix. They have free agents to resign. They have to figure out Lamar's contract, so they have their own things to work out as well. I think next year is more likely that we get um, more parity in the AFC, be it the Chargers take a step, be it the Broncos continue what they did this year, New England comes back even better, be it Houston improves their offensive line. You know, I think that the Ravens do get it together and they go on a run, or Josh and Buffalo can figure it out post Sean McDermott and they can go on a run. I think the AFC is looking at another scenario where it's as wide open as it's ever been in the Chiefs era. And then the NFC is always going to be you know a dog fight for everybody involved. So that side of it is always interesting to see how it plays out because coming into this year, everybody, I'm sure the Eagles were the odds-on favorite to get back there just based on the roster makeup and how they ended last year. And we saw what happened to them. They imploded from inside. So you never know over there. But I think another parody filled season is on the way because this won't change people's opinion of Sam Darnold because he didn't light the world on fire yesterday in that win. The defense was dominant. So I don't think Seattle will come into next season as an overwhelming favorite to win the title again, even though they'll get the respect as defending champs. So next year's gonna be interesting. Next year's gonna be very, very interesting. Free agency obviously has to play out, the draft has to play out, but I think we're looking at next year the same way we did this year with any of these teams can win the championship.
That's to say, shout out to also your draft predictions from last year. Like you
Smoked it.
smoked 5
Smoked it. Smoked it.
and 5. I guess that's my last question. You kind of already hinted at it. The same way, and I don't, and this is not even trying to be disrespectful, but I genuinely think last year's Eagles roster is one of the greatest rosters of all time. Should Seattle be the maybe not overwhelming favorite, but should they be the definitive favorite to be champs next year?
I say yes, just because they can get better themselves. Like they can improve the receiver room around JSN and Rashid Shaheed. I don't know what they'll do with Cooper Cup. Who looked well. He moved well in the playoffs. I don't think Cooper Cup looked bad. He looked like he moved well, but I think they can add another more dynamic receiver to go around Shaheed's speed and just everything JSN can do. Um,
Mhm.
and then the defense is not going anywhere. Like they'll obviously probably let Tariq Woolen go in free agency, but they have capital. Like the Seahawks control their picks, um, and they'll have a few dollars to move around. Like Sam is on a fucking bargain deal, so they'll be they'll be right back here next year to defend the championship. Rather they do it, that's another story. But they have everything necessary that you they have everything that you want to have to be in the spot again. Um, a young piece on the offensive line that's movable and grazeable that can play all over the place if they want to make some moves there. Charles Cross balled out. Kenneth Walker, I think, proved that he should be the bell cow lead back of this offense. Even with Charbonnet there, and they just get a lot of production out of the tight ends, as we saw. That was the only touchdown they got yesterday on offense was from the tight end, was from the tight end room. So they always get good production there, and we'll see. But like I said, I think that they should definitely be leading in the room when you think about teams that can win the championship.
No, I agree. That's kind of where I'm at with them. Is I don't feel as, and obviously I was wrong, but I don't feel as confident them as I did about Philly last year. But I do think they should be the number one team. And obviously I was a Rams guy all year long, which I think the Rams still, in the hypothetical world of opinions and eyes, it's like I still think they have an argument as the second best team in the sport this year, but they lost, and that's how it goes. Hey man, I appreciate you as always. Don't forget you can check out Tony 3:30 p.m. Pacific time every single Wednesday. Group chat podcast. Hey, appreciate you, bro, and we'll catch you then.
See you, man.
That Tony, we're back here. This is HardFoul Radio. Tony saying that about Sam Darnold actually got me really intrigued as far as tomorrow. That might be how we lead off the show. Sam Darnold being in his prime is definitely not a question that I think I've asked myself, and maybe that is unfair of me. But if we are going to be fair, and he's obviously had a much different career path, but if Allen is still in his prime and Lamar's still in his prime and we're still giving Mahomes that credit, Sam Darnold's in that age range. Like, why aren't we considering him to be in his prime quarterback? Is that just because of bias? It could be because we feel like we've already seen so much of him being bad. It's tough, man. There's going to be a lot of looking towards next season the more the week goes on. And again, we'll have a lot more NBA starting next week. But I do want to make sure that I take today to celebrate what Seattle did, which is Seattle dominating the Patriots. The game was not as close as the score. Give Seattle credit, man. They went unconventional on multiple things, and they swung, and they hit it out the park. Sam Darnold was the unconventional signing. You had Geno Smith, who everybody in the media loved. He was his own comeback story after you traded away Russell Wilson. He had back-to-back good seasons for you. You got 10 wins last year, even though he didn't make the playoffs. And you said, hey, we're going to get rid of Geno. We're going to bring in Sam Darnold. Boom, rewarded with the Super Bowl. Then you go Mike Macdonald as a hire. And now Mike Macdonald, let me be very clear, was a great – he had a lot of buzz and attention as a coaching candidate. It was not like they made some huge risk going for Mike Macdonald as far as the individual candidate. But what they did take a swing on, and that was unconventional, is everybody the last decade is hire the offensive guy, get Sean McVay tree, which is really the Mike Shanahan tree, but we won't talk about it. Get him in the Hall of Fame, please. But it's like, oh, get these offensive guys. Kyle Shanahan coaches, Kyle Shanahan tree, boom, boom, boom. Like, this is the way the NFL is going. If you get a defensive guy, you just don't know what you're doing anymore. And then they said, hey, look, we're not only going to get a defensive guy, we are going to get a defensive guy and put him in a division with the two best offensive play callers and say, you do your best, we're going to do ours, and our best is going to be better. That takes guts, that takes balls, that's risk, that is going against the norm, and they were rewarded with a Super Bowl within 2 years of the head coaching hire and the first year of the new quarterback. So when you make these kind of swings, everybody, like, again, a lot of these happen every single day, and a lot of teams swing and miss. And Seattle consistently over the last couple of years, whether it's been their draft classes since the Russell Wilson departure, which they've been swinging and hitting, and for the draft classes, Devin Witherspoon, who had an argument if they were going to give that whole defense was dominant last night. If they were going to get to an individual defensive player, the MVP of that game, he would have got it. When they drafted him 5 overall, which I believe was the year right after they traded Russ, he was not a consensus top 5 pick. But they said, hey, look, we believe in him. This is our guy. This is the direction we want the franchise to go. They keep swinging. They keep hitting. They're hitting home runs, hitting out the park. John Snyder, their GM, you have to consider him in that upper echelon of NFL general managers. And again, you got to do something a little different to win a Super Bowl. Because if it was so obvious, if it was so in plain sight, if it was so, oh yeah, this is what you're supposed to do, more teams would win. But the teams that do something a little unconventional, the teams that do a little against the grain, they're the teams that have success. And that's not to say New England didn't do things against the grain. I could argue New England, them signing Stephon Diggs after an injury and in his 30s, you could say that was against the grain. I don't think a lot of other teams would have offered him that contract. Milton Williams, they brought in a lot of guys through free agency. And so I don't want to discredit New England. They obviously had a great season. They made it to the Super Bowl. But Seattle going against the grain big time with head coach and quarterback signing, defensive guy in the division with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, trading away Geno Smith, who was a fan favorite, his own comeback story, bringing in Sam Darnold. This is like You can't do anything but give Seattle the utmost credit. So congratulations, Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl 60 champions. They deserved it. They earned it. Congrats to them. In the world of, do my eyes tell me more than the numbers? And I believe this. And this is a big issue with the MVP thing, right? And this was happening a lot. And we're actually going to close a little bit early, so I'm closing the show on this. And I don't want to kill Mina Kimes because I like Mina Kimes. I like her podcast. I like when she's on ESPN. I like her on NFL Live. I think she does a fantastic job. I'm a big Mina Kimes fan. But I did not like her MVP argument. I'll be honest with you. Her MVP argument was, I'm going to list off a bunch of numbers and statistics that say why Drake May was actually better than Matthew Stafford. And if you voted May for MVP, I don't think you're wholeheartedly wrong. I think he obviously had an argument. But I think if your conversation or your argument for an MVP or for an award or for who's the better player is listing off a bunch of things like EVOA and your yards per attempt and all these numbers and statistics, and not just the normal stats. If you just say, we all agree, if a quarterback goes out there and was like 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, we'd all say, yeah, he's the MVP. Those are easy to consume numbers. When you start giving me DVOA and expected yards per pass, I don't want, respectfully, computers voting for MVP or calculators voting for MVP or them telling me who's the best player. I want my eyes to mean something. And again, I think she's getting unfairly killed for this because I do think that Mina knows ball. I think Mina is extremely good at her job. I think she is one of the best insiders and media people in sports that we have. Like, huge fan. I just think that comment and that argument fell on a lot of deaf ears when it's like, well, let me tell you about his DVOA and his EPA, and it's like, I don't want that to be my MVP decider. I know there was a lot of people that are upset because Stafford had a bunch of 1-yard touchdowns. I also think those people don't understand how hard it is to actually throw in the goal. Like, running in the end zone and running in the goal line is just flat out easier than throwing. Like, there's a reason why teams forever are like, yeah, we're going to run the ball in. It is an easier method. When you're in that congested of an area, you have such a small route tree that this is why goal line fade is the like go-to pass play forever, is because it's hard to throw the ball when you've only got a few yards to operate with as receivers. I think that narrative and that storyline of, oh, well, he's got a bunch of 1-yard touchdown stat padding, I don't think is actually fair to Stafford's MVP case. I think Stafford was the best player all year. I think Stafford deserved the MVP. And I do want my eyes to be able to tell me something. I don't want just a bunch of numbers being thrown off in front of me, because not that it's fair, but it will bring some, well, why do we even have human voters? Let's just make it all a bunch of calculators and computers and let them decide who the MVP is. Drake May had an incredible season. And Drake May, I think last comment before we log off, I think Drake is actually going to be a little happy he's not the MVP. Because if Stafford, who had the 2 best games against the Seattle defense, if Drake had won MVP, Stafford put up those 2 stat lines, the NFC Championship game and the last one in the regular season, and Drake came out and had that performance, but he was the MVP of the National Football League, I think it would hurt him more. The same way I think Cam Newton gets unfairly ripped because he was the MVP and then didn't play well in the Super Bowl, and we know the fumble. Like, I think that hurts. If Cam was second in MVP that year, but the Panthers still had an amazing season, I don't think we would look at it the same. Like, Brady, I believe, was second in MVP the year Cam won. And I don't think Brady losing to Peyton in the AFC Championship game felt the same way as Cam losing to the Broncos in the Super Bowl. And so I think Drake is actually, it's going to be a beneficial thing that he didn't win MVP. Man, a lot more to talk about. Again, we're going to talk a lot more about the next season and moving forward. But again, congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks, your Super Bowl 60 champions. They've embarrassed another team in the Super Bowl that's not Denver. So let's all talk about that game going forward and never relive 2013. This is HardFoul Radio. I appreciate you all so much, and I will see you tomorrow night.